these out to the group ahead of time?
Yes,
so
yes,
that
yes.
Yeah, I would expect to have it pretty soon, so I could get it up to DCA and make sure that we're, you know, we see everything's copacetic and you could put it out again.
So I will move then that we not have a meeting on February 7th, and our next public meeting would be March 6th.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Anybody on the commission have any further items for the group?
I do. For this, the other subcommittees, I recall that there were some emails going back and forth that we really haven't met as a sub-team, any of the sub-teams. So I guess somebody from each of the sub-teams should reach out to the rest of the people on their committees so that we can also schedule some meetings between, or at least one meeting between now and the March 6th date. So whoever wants to do that from each of the teams, one or all of us, so that we can move that forward as well.
I agree with Bill. I think that it would be helpful for us in subcommittees, and since we're all in one subcommittee, you know, we have to kind of play the dates, but it would be helpful for us to start formulating our ideas and our knowledge from our community's perspective. These are the things that we know might be issues that need to be addressed. We had an open meeting with Merchant, we had an open meeting at Cherry Hill, we had a joint meeting. We have things for that. I have notes on those, and I'll forward those to each of you about what the concerns that were discussed were. But I think it would help to streamline the process with the consultants when it's finally done to say, this is a general outline from our perspective of things that we believe need to be looked at, need to be addressed. And I think it might help the consultants in that sense, you know, to focus in on things that need to be focused in on from our perspective. And then they would have their own, in theory, their own suggestions, say, well, besides that, you need to look at X, Y, and Z. But I think it would give them at least a starting point.
So you're going to bring them together. You've already distributed them to us in the minutes, but you're talking about community comments?
The community, yeah, not from the last one, but for the summer.
Yeah, you sent those out.
Okay, all right. But I'll resend them, you know, so that everybody has them.
And Rich and I will, at least to get this off and running, will be a clearinghouse for getting the committee groups together, subcommittees.
All right, great.
Okay.
And what about your people? I mean, I think when we all broke last time, here we had, you know, 5 names, 6 names, whatever, and 6 names, and I kind of was staying home wondering who's going to call me, who's going to send me an email, who's going to say, let's
So
get
at this
together.
point, again, without being too formal, Rich and I will be the clearinghouse to put the meetings together, and I think at the next meeting, depending on who's here and all that, we might want to spend a little more time at our next meeting in March on some organizational details.
Good.
I was going to recommend that.
Good.
I do mergers with positions from an HR standpoint, so we can be on the same page.
My other volunteer activities, I'm working with 9 nonprofits trying to get them to merge. If you think this is complicated, holy moly.
Payroll health and nonprofit is finished.
See us when we're done, and we thought Shaw had things that we can look at with committees.
Okay.
Anybody else? How about comments from our community partners here today? Can you also state your name so we know who we're talking with?
My name is Bob Shin. I live in Cherry Hill. I have a couple of questions. I don't know if you want me to ask them
Sure.
all at once or
Go for it.
they sort of depend on the answers. I guess the first question is, have you formally requested any financial assistance from Cherry Hill Township and Merchantville, and have they formally declined to provide?
So I've said that, Bob, about 4 times at this meeting already. Neither municipality is currently prepared to support this with finance.
Just that informal conversation, or did you actually send them a formal letter requesting that town council consider it?
Merchantville Borough Council passed a resolution saying that they supported the study but would not contribute money to the study.
How about Cherry Hill? We have a new council and a new mayor.
We had that discussion with them today, and as I reported, they're currently not prepared to support it financially.
Currently or forever?
We'll have to see how it develops.
So can you tell us who is the contracting body that's going to be issuing the RFP?
So that's an excellent question. I have an idea, but again, we'll have to have continuing discussions with, I believe, Cherry Hill would be the logical, since they're a municipal partner and Merchantville is a more community-driven process, that they would be the fiscal agent to manage the funds. Would be my idea, but we have not finalized that with them.
They haven't refused to do that.
They have not agreed or refused to do that.
Can you tell us?
And the reason, just for the audience, when we approach foundations, they expect a high rigor of financial controls and all that stuff if they're giving us money to do the work, and somebody needs to manage that money and disperse that money. And we are not, this commission is not a body politic. We are a commission, and we need a formal corporate entity to do that work for us, I think.
So it gets to the next question. Our presumption is that your commission is charged with doing an objective study, or the conclusion that it's desirable to merge has already been preordained. So this is supposed to be
No.
objective study.
We have to do an objective study, and 3 members from each community has to agree to board.
Then can you tell us which foundations you're going to approach?
I have one in mind.
And how would we know that the funds that are being provided don't have some strings attached or some bias on the part of the funders?
Again, we're going to go to some of the most prestigious foundations in the world to do this, and the one that funds activities in New Jersey, which is the Fund for New Jersey, if we can get the money, and God willing we can, because this would be very difficult to do without some serious foundation support. I worked in the foundation world for many years, and the foundations that I work with are reputable, objective, powerful organizations that have their own boards that want to make sure their money is being spent appropriately and wisely.
Well, can you tell us now, or tell us in the future, which foundations you're going to apply to?
I can tell you, I told you one already, the Fund for New Jersey, and there are other local foundations that have actually a national footprint who may be interested in this work.
I believe that we also should contact our state senator and state representative and ask them to go to the state itself and ask for money to support this. This is something that they want. So I don't believe, Bob, that we can answer your question tonight other than to say we're going to look as wherever we have to look in order to get the money to have this.
So you will ultimately disclose to the public who you represent.
Who's providing the money? I don't know that we would say we asked this person and they said we asked this group and they said no. But I don't have any problem.
The reason, Bob, we're having the meeting the way we're having the meeting is you'll hear us talking about this here. We don't talk to each other until we get here.
Okay. Well, you have a subcommittee.
And the subcommittee, right?
Yeah.
But even then, we have to give a report.
That no subcommittee is dealing with this as an issue.
The committee of the whole.
It is committee of the whole that deals with this as an issue.
Have you established what a threshold minimum amount of funding that you need to do a worthwhile contract?
As you heard us talking before, that's what the RFPs will come back to say. In order to do what you're asking us to do, we're going to charge you this much money. So their proposal to us is what will determine essentially what our budget is going to be, and how much money has to be raised in order to employ them as a consulting firm.
Well, I can tell you from long experience making applications to foundations, if you don't know how much you think you need, you're gonna have a very difficult time making an
Again,
application.
I think you might not be hearing exactly what we're going to do. We're going to put these proposals out for bid. We are going to get responses with budgets, and then we're going to go to foundations to seek support.
So the people who make the bids are gonna understand that their proposal's gonna be contingent on being funded by some foundation.
Absolutely.
Okay.
My spouse isn't letting me pay for this myself.
And one final question. When you go into it, you talked about certain basic assumptions. I believe Commissioner Hicks was talking about deal breakers and things like that. Is your assumption going to be going into this that Merchantville citizens want to have, for example, a professional fire department like Cherry Hill has?
I don't think we know the answer to
We
that
don't
yet.
know.
Well, you're going to have to answer that question to do the study. Because as I understand it, Merchantville has one professional fireman.
And that's what would be charged, the part of the consultant would be charged with figuring that out and making recommendations.
You're going to ask the consultant to recommend whether the community should have a professional fire department?
They're going to make, they're going to say, as I understand it, these are your options. These are the things that you could do. You could do that. Am I right, George? And that's basically.
Well,
what
they would
happens?
probably make recommendations. Then it comes down to what the communities want.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm trying to understand. How are you going to determine what the community, or what Commissioner Hicks said, what the deal breakers are? What do you want to include in your recommendation? How are you going to make that determination?
I
Your-
think that's,
Your feedback tonight, in every meeting, whoever has interest in this, we hope will share with us their particular concern. So if the fire departments would show up and express their preferences, it would be very helpful. We take it into consideration, and we're trying to use the community to be our guide.